Okay, so I just want to do maybe a couple of these or give some guidance. I always find students have a little bit of trouble with these circle problems. So the first one says, some farmers use a circular irrigation method, right? An irrigation arm acts as the radius of a circle, so you have kind of a circle of crops. If you've ever been in the Midwest and seen this, in the middle is this arm, and then it has kind of this, or in the middle of this kind of a rotator. So it has this arm, and the arm rotates around, and on each little thing has like a sprinkler, so it's kind of like a shower raining down on the crops, so it kind of hovers over the crops and circles around and then waters all of them. Okay, so it says how much more land is covered with an irrigation arm of 300 feet, so that's this, right? Then an irrigation arm, let's say we had a different green one, and oops, I want that to be green. A green one that only goes out this far, right? And that's 250 feet. 50, right? So you have kind of two circles. This 300, like maybe this color coding is not working out. A circle that looks like this, and the radius is 300 feet. And then you have another circle that's slightly smaller, and this is 250 feet. And you're kind of like, how much more square footage do I cover in this bigger circle, right? So this is a question of area because this, like the water covers and waters all of the crops inside the circle. Okay, so like the translation of this question is like which one of these circles, obviously the 300-foot radius has a bigger area, and the question is how much bigger is it? So I'll let y'all do that, but you should use area of a circle is pi r squared, calculate two areas, and move forward, right? Here, this is a problem that asks you to convert the measure of paper and paperboard segment to radians, and it's in percentage, right? So this is a reminder that a circle has 2 pi radians. So when it says convert the measure of paper, so 2 pi radians is also equal to 100% of the circle. And so you can do a proportion and set this up in a proportion to figure out what 35% of the circle would be, but that's kind of where we are. Is that okay? And that's all it's asking, right? So I know that the paper and paperboard here, I'm going to read that, and that's 35%. And then I have to kind of combine that with this information to figure out what the 35% is equivalent to. Okay. For problem 3, I'm not going to talk through all of these, but I want to talk through a few of these. It says find the measure of the indicated arc in radians. So I have this one here, it's 45 degrees, right? And then, so it says find 45 degrees in radians and then convert and find the length of this red segment. And then over here, the red segment is here, even though you know this 60-degree angle. So for this first circle, to convert 45 degrees to radians, I take 45 degrees and I multiply. People use one of two conversion factors. 2 pi is equal to 360 degrees. But also if I divide both sides of that by 2, I get pi is 180. So people will use pi radians over 180 degrees. And then they will simplify this in just fraction form because 45 and 180, like 180 is evenly divisible. So if you do this fractional work, you should get that this is pi over 4 radians, right? Now, to find the length of this arc, people will either sometimes people will find the full circumference and then find kind of what part of the arc it is. But you don't really need to do that. The arc length is just r times theta because of the way that we have defined radians, right? So remember, like 1 radian, if this arc was 1 radian, which it's almost like pi 3, it's like 3/4 of a radian. So it means like, so if I round this, I just want to say, like, for meaning, this is about 3/4 of a radian. Now, you should not round pi to 3 all the time. I just want to do this to think about it. So 3/4 of a radian means this arc is 3/4 the length of the radius, right? So I want to do this, so we really usually write arc length as r theta, but you really think of it as like theta is how many radiuses wrap around, and then I multiply it by the measure or length of the radius, which in this case is 14 centimeters. So to get an approximation of this, for sure, I could do, this is 3/4 of the radius because that's how many radians it is, and that's what radians mean. So, but if I really want to do this, I'm going to do, it's actually exactly, the arc length is exactly pi over 4 times 14 centimeters. And then you can plug that into your calculator and see what you get. Is that okay? So, but this is like the value of having this number or having the angle in radians is it is directly proportional. It tells you exactly kind of the multiplier on the radius that creates this arc right here. I don't have to do anything special. I just have to be like, oh, is this about 3/4 of a radian? It means the arc length is also about 3/4 of the radius. Like that's the exact relationship. Okay. Here, this says 5 streets come together at a traffic circle. The diameter of the circle is 200 feet. So that's not the radius, but it is the diameter. If traffic travels counterclockwise, what is the distance from East Street here to Neponset Street there? And again, this is a question about the length of that arc. It's not about area, right? It's like about how far I travel along this arc. So I'll let y'all do that. That's similar to question 3. Question 5. In 1 revolution, how much farther does a point from the center of the record travel than a point 3 centimeters from the center? So I have like this. This is related to why people on the track are always running on the very closest innermost lane if they can in certain races. In some short races they can't do that, but in longer races, you know how everyone or like cars are trying to go on the inside of the track? It's because it's shorter. So I have this record here, right? And there's the center. And so let's say here, from the center out here, this is a point that's 10 centimeters, right? And when it travels, it's going to go around this path, all the way around. Now I have another point, let's say that's 3 centimeters, and when it travels, it's just going to go around this path, right? And the point of the problem is those two paths are very different in length, right? So you just need to find kind of both lengths and then see what the difference is. But again, this is related to that. The runners who are running in a track meet aren't running around the biggest outside lane in that oval because it's longer. The outside, the curved parts, right, on the ends of this oval track are longer. The straight parts are the same length. So when you start the straight part of the track, it's the same whether or not you're on the inside or the outside. But on those turns, it's shorter to be on the inside part of the track. Okay. Find the perimeter of the green portion area. So you're finding perimeter, or right here, of this. And then you're given the length of this. The side of this square is 4 inches by 4 inches. And so then you need to kind of figure out what these other measurements are. I'll let y'all work on that. Find the area of the blue shaded segment. Again, this is an area. Again, this is 14 inches and 14 inches, so it's a square. So this is 14 and this is 14 inches also. And these are little circles here, so quarter circles there. The diver at the right is collecting samples from the ocean. This line here is 100 meters long, and the diver is working at a depth of 80 feet. First, find the radius of the circle, which is right here. You have to find that radius first, and then find the area of that circle where he can walk. Okay, and then at the end, it just has an example of like the kind of the stuff I did on converting radians to degrees, so you can see that too. Okay, so I hope these comments help. Sometimes people just have trouble, I would say, getting started. And once they get started, this assignment is usually okay. But you're always welcome to ask questions.